yesterday in Sialkot raises a lot of questions about the use of religion in politics and overall the societal framework and the way that these incidents, unfortunately it's not the first time that this incident has happened in Pakistan, and has led to a lot of questions that I think need to be asked, and we all think need to be asked as far as the society is concerned, as far as the use of religion in politics is concerned. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the NA 133 by-elections which are scheduled to take place tomorrow, and the overall political situation with regard to these elections and how things look as far as the by-elections of tomorrow are concerned, the ramifications of these elections overall, if any, as far as the government is concerned, as far as the opposition is concerned. How are things today? All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Ahmed Jawad, Central Secretary Information PTI. Thank you for joining us today. Barrister Kashif Zubair Ahmed, who's a legal expert. Thank you for being with us today. Jawad Sahab, to start off with you, like I said, what happened yesterday is reprehensible and condemnable in no small measure. Everyone has criticized it, everyone across the board. I don't think there are two opinions about what happened yesterday. We saw what the Prime Minister said, he tweeted about it, and of course there have been some results following the inquiry of the incident that happened yesterday. But overall, the use of religion in politics is something that has, wouldn't you agree, increased over time?
Marukh, while giving the introduction of this program, you were also showing the picture of victim and his family. I was just thinking that this picture must be going around in the world on international media with the name of Pakistan. And imagine the kind of damage we have received because of this incident around the world. I mean, none of our explanation, none of our sympathy or any words perhaps can repair the damage which this single incident has inflicted on us around the world, internationally. But at the same time, you also mentioned that it's not the first incident.
Yes, it's not, unfortunately.
So what it means, that it is not out of blue, one odd incident. It's a kind of trend in Pakistan. We can still recall the face of young student. I mean, you are showing right now on the television.
Yes.
From the university. You can recall that bank manager. You can recall that Christian couple who were burnt alive. I mean, it's a history, repeated history of such incidents. And I don't know how can we stop this thing. I mean, this wave of extremism, religious extremism, and in the name of Islam, burning people alive, killing people alive, based on any personal issue, and you can just cover it up with a anything, any religious sentiment, and then there is a mob and they are doing something which will remain in the memory of people for very long time. And obviously the family of that victim, that boy, his wife, his family, people in Sri Lanka, all over the world, it's very, very unfortunate, and I don't know how to further say anything on this thing. But from our state perspective, I think there are two things which are very, very important, because when I say that it's a repeated incident, it's a series, it's a trend which is coming again and again. So we cannot just say that it just happened out of blue. So the trend is there, and there are two aspects to that. Number one, rule of law, the ability of our law enforcement agencies, if there is somebody in such kind of crisis, whether our police, our agencies, security agencies, they can react that fast to rescue the life of a person who is into such kind of situation.
At that moment when it's
at
happening.
That moment, I mean, I'm sure even in this incident,
there was some criticism.
I mean, I saw the visual. There were police officers police constable or officers in uniform. They were around, but they also seemed helpless. So the number one question, I mean, which as a state, as a government, will have to deliberate the ability of our police, because the incidents will happen again. Whether our police in a city is trained to address such.
You're saying to react as quickly
to react
as it should.
and save a precious life.
Jawad Sahab, let's come back. I'll come back to you. I know that you're raising. Let's go back to this. Gee, Barrister Kashif Zubair, what, overall, as far as the law side is concerned, what Jawad Sahab is saying is of course true as far as, reaction, the way that the authorities react to what happened yesterday. Regardless of that, in your opinion, as far as the laws stand today, how do you view the laws as a lawyer? You think that they are, the way that they're enforced is the second part of it, right? In terms of how the law stands today related to these offences, how do you look at it?
I think the legal perspective and the provisions are available is more to do with enforcing the law rather than having the law in place in the first
Are you
instance.
satisfied that the law at this time on these kind of offences, the way that it happened, is it doesn't need to be revisited?
I think it should be revisited to the extent that we should make it more stringent, that such people who cause such incidents should be punished speedily. But my view is that I think these incidents will be taken seriously and will be taken under the terrorism laws. But in addition to that, I think we have to take it on a social level as well in order to explain that not only it's a matter that hurts the very cause of Muslim and Islam for which the laws have been made to protect, but it affects us, all of us, as a nation, as a country, internationally. We or those people who cause these incidents to happen actually strengthen the cause against laws in Pakistan to protect.
Do you think it can perhaps be, do you think that it allows, let me try and phrase this in the right way, do you think that it allows for abuse perhaps?
Of course,
so
because I think it does. It has become quite apparent from various cases that have taken place, and that.
So would you say that in your opinion it could be amended?
Well, I think instead of amending the law itself, we have to strengthen the law against the incidents that have taken place, and we have to highlight socially and make it more publicized in the public the consequences of labeling false allegation. And in addition, I think I'd like to make this point as well. It's a question of actually rule of law. We have to make it known to our public that when let
me come back to you. We also have with us Ali Rashid, who is leader PPP. Ali, we've been discussing the incident that happened in Sialkot and the fact that, of course, other than saying that it's condemnable on all levels, and other than condemning it, overall, unfortunately, it's not the first time that an incident like this has happened, unfortunately. Your views on why, as far as the use of religion in politics is concerned, I really want to talk about that. Over time, do you feel that it's increased?
Thank you so much for having me on your show. Yes, I think it has increased, and I think the incident is very unfortunate, and it gives a very negative image of Pakistan internationally. And I think People's Party especially can relate to this because, as you know, if you look in the past, we've actually lost Salman Taseer Saab to this, and a minority minister to this previously also. So we've been victims of these kind of false allegations and people reacting to such things. I think as our friends earlier said, there should be a rule of law, and these kind of incidents should be dealt with the iron fist. I think it's about time that we should start making examples out of people who are falsely using the blasphemy laws to settle scores. I think blasphemy laws, obviously, there's no compromise on it. But at the same time, people who are actually falsely using it, that's also a sin, and that's also very wrong. And I think they're, if not equally, but at some level, they're also they should be held accountable for it. And I don't think till we don't deal with it with the iron fist, things will get better. I think, whatever happened in the past happened. I think, especially this incident, I think the Prime Minister should take notice, which he has, I'm assuming. And these culprits, the culprits should be made an example. So next time, anybody who thinks about using these laws, falsely accusing people, should think twice before doing so. And also, I think if you look at some election laws, now you're talking about politics and religion and politics. If you look at some...
Ali, let me come back to you. We also have with us Dr. Qibla Ayaz, who is Chairman Islamic Ideology Council. He's also a religious scholar. Dr. Qibla Ayaz, overall, we've been talking about the use of religion in politics with reference to what happened, the incident that happened yesterday. In your opinion, as a religious scholar, how do you see the laws that govern incidences like this?
Thank you very much for taking me on board on this very important issue. It is a very sad incident, and not only from religious point of view, but from diplomatic point of view as well, because Sri Lanka has been a very good friend, and particularly in SAARC, Sri Lanka has always been supporting Pakistan. So this is a very great setback to Pakistan on both sides. As far as law is concerned, the problem in Pakistan is that there are many laws in Pakistan, but the real problem in Pakistan is that laws are not implemented in true sense. And if, for example, this incident is concerned, if it goes through legal process, it will take, for example, 2 or 3 years. So this is not actually the way such heinous crimes are to be treated. I remember there were riots in Birmingham in Britain, and Britain immediately British government set up a commission of experts to go into the roots of the causes of such incidents and then suggest measures how to curb them. And then there were courts 24 hours, day and night, and immediately culprits were taken to book. And you see that after that, Britain never saw any such incident. So in our situation, particularly in this Sialkot situation, I think we are passing through an emergency situation, and there is need for emergency action as well.
Okay, let me come back to you. Please stay with us, Dr. Qibla Ayaz. Jawad Sahab, I don't think there are two opinions on the fact that it should be, there should be immediate action on it. It should be taken immediately, and there has been action on it. There has been, there is one person who's also being held at this time. So obviously, the law will take its course, and I will go to Bas Sahab to ask what the lacunas are there for instances like this. But again, the question of the use of religion at this time in politics, unfortunately or fortunately, has increased. How do you see that?
Yes, intolerance has increased in the society, and I also try to explain it with the perspective of the digital age as well, because previously the direct interaction of people was not so easy. I mean, our opinions were very restricted in our own domain, among our own friends, our offices, our homes. But then with this digital age, our opinions are now 24 hours going around, and if you go on the social media, you would realize that the element of extreme stands is taken on social media. There is abusive and there is threatening and insulting behaviors on the social media. We must realize that this social media, I mean, we just cannot take it out that it's just a social media. No, it is about more than 100 million people in Pakistan who are interacting, and maybe through the words, but this interaction is also very extreme, and it is also not good for the society overall. About the tolerance, about the respect each other's opinion, about the stance we take on religious matters, on political matters, that is also taking very extreme positions, and that is now kind of I would say nurturing a society, especially our next generation society, with very limited ability to for the mutual respect, for the mutual for the respect of mutual opinion. So it is shrinking. This space is shrinking, and it will have very long-term effect on the society, especially on the religious aspect, because it is more than the social media. It was in some forms since I think long time, and we have seen its incidents number of time. On that side, I think all political parties, it's not just
No,
the
of course,
ruling,
not just the
all
government, it's-
political
yes.
parties must sit together in the parliament, and like you also asked a question that whether we need to revisit the law, whether the current law, even the authority and the capacity of police, or whether it is when such incident happens and how the judiciary can address this issue. Both aspects, for this you need to bring some reforms, you need to
Right,
revisit
let's
the
talk about
law to make it more comprehensive, make it more efficient, and it can address such issues. We have there is another very I would say horrible situation we see after this incident. Every such incident, the people you apprehend and put them in the jail, and some group try to present
The
them as
pressure
some kind of heroes.
Yeah, okay, let's
So
talk
this
about
is
that.
another aspect which
Very
is
relevant.
encouraging
Right.
further that such incident will happen in the future also, because some people take it as that it's like becoming
Right, I want to
hero.
come to you. I'll come to Bahasa, but I want to go to Dr. Qibla Ayaz. He's only with us for a little bit. Dr. Qibla Ayaz, this is another thing, and I think that Jawad Saab raises a very fair point when he says that these people are often not viewed, the crowds that are responsible for this kind of lynching that happened yesterday, and of course the Salman Taseer incident also, which Ali Rashid mentioned. Unfortunately, the way that these people are looked at is not always, the same way you and I would probably look at them. So that raises other questions, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's very right. Like, for example, Mumtaz Qadri committed a crime, and he killed a person for whom he was not authorized in any way. But then he was treated as hero. So this is actually all those aspects for which I have suggested that there is need for a commission of experts. This commission of experts should see and look into why our society has become so callous that criminals are made heroes and they are treated like they are holy persons. So only then we will be able to find out the causes of this situation, and then from psychological point of view, why our youth particularly has become so callous. Like yesterday when we were seeing these videos, a foreigner who was serving in Pakistan was lynched, and they were taking pictures and videos, and they were chanting slogans, trying to prove that religion has allowed us to kill this man. So these are things which really need a very thorough investigation, and some sort of research has become need of the time on such events.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being with us. Whether some research, he's saying that, perhaps we need to research why this is happening. And before I go on, we have to talk about the by-elections also. But Barrister Saab, overall, the lacunas in the law at this time, reform, which Jawad Saab has mentioned, don't you feel that, there are certain checks and balances that could exist in the law that could make it perhaps more efficient? For there to be, less safeguards for people like these to escape the net of the law, so to speak?
I would say I think there should be a special tribunal set up to deal with these sort of incidents. We've seen the incidents of blasphemy where cases have taken very long, and then people have taken the laws into their own hands. And perhaps there has been a perception created that because of the delay, there may not be any justice done to those who've been accused of this. In my view, if we could set up special tribunals which could deal with such incident on both sides, those who commit and those who are falsely alleged accused of these incidents, and there should be certain time limits set up in which those cases are dealt with separate to the ordinary law, which general perception is takes very long. That could be one solution legally, which could expedite and could give a sort of assurance in the society that there are tribunals who deal exclusively with such matters.
But in terms of delay, not just as far as these instances are concerned, these incidences are concerned, there are, the delay in our justice system is certainly a huge flaw anyway, right? And there have been, there are so many times that we've seen, even recently, the courts have spoken about it, the Supreme Court has spoken about it. Overall, this area of the law I don't think there are two opinions, needs reform.
Of course.
So that reform, do you think it's high time is going to come, needs to come from, of course, that judicial reform, which is, it'll be a small part of it, but it's certainly a huge issue at this time?
Of course, it's a huge issue. It has put us on the spotlight before the international community. And as a lawyer, I would extend my sympathies to those, to the person who's been subject of this incident. But speaking on the legal front, what I said before was that it's not about the judicial reform. It's about setting up special laws on
about
two
this,
fronts.
particularly about, you're saying crimes like this.
Yes.
But
what I'm saying is
yes.
this: we can set up a tribunal which can deal with those who are accused of such incidents on an expeditious basis and separately, and in the very same tribunal could deal with those who make such allegation, and including those who can take these commit these lynching and take the law into their own hands. We have to create a situation where we deal both of them, those who commit blasphemy and those who falsely allege blasphemy, or take their law into their own hands on an equal basis before one tribunal, one court. And I was going through the law on this point, and it's very interesting to note that up until now we don't have any special law on this. We have special laws on almost everything, take it from consumer to rental, but we don't have any special law on blasphemy. It's part of our general law, which has been a very old law, and it is there like any other penal prevailing in the penal code. If we look at the incident and the severity of the incident and the...
You're saying that there needs to be legislation, there needs to be revisiting of the law as a whole, there needs to be amendment, but perhaps
what I'm saying is we need to have a
legislation.
special law.
Okay. So that would entail legislation, yes.
Special law, apart from general law that deals with these incidents. And I would add one thing more. I think we need, this is high time that we now create a law that actually suppresses this sort of incident and promotes equality and freedom of speech between public, and tell them that there is a rule of law and we have to go through that procedure. And my suggestion that I said before, talked about before, of creating a special tribunal would help that, and that tribunal could be created under a special law.
Right, okay. I want to move on. I want to go on to the NA 133 by-elections. I'll go to Ali. Ali, overall, the situation as far as the by-elections are concerned, because we've seen that the PTI candidates have been disqualified. How do you see the situation in terms of the position of PPP as far as NA 133 elections are concerned? And of course, you know, the general perception being that the PMLN is quite strong there.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that that it's going to be a tough seat for PPP to contest, but I think they're giving a good fight. And also recently, this other party, AWM, has also given support to PPP in our favor, and we are hopeful. And here, I would like to add that you should see that PTI forget about having voters. They don't have even proposers and seconders who can actually be there from the same area. So it's a very questionable, it's not that PTI's person, he got disqualified because of any other reason. It was because they didn't have the people from that NA 13, PPS 133 to contest a person who can actually be there. So that's something which speaks volumes about PTI's performance and this situation. But I feel that PPP looks good, and we are very hopeful.
Okay, let me come back to you. Ji, Jawad Sahab. Jawad Sahab, overall, in terms of, you know, this being in Lahore and the way that it has panned out, the disqualifications that have happened in NA 133, there's also been, you know, a lot of theories about the fact that the government, the PTI, didn't want to contest anyway because it was such a difficult seat. It would have been a very difficult seat for them, and this is going to be a walkover. All of those things. What are your comments on that?
Maruf, with your permission, the subject we were discussing before, I just want to add one thing, in my opinion, very important. I think after every such incident, our focus of discussion is still firefighting, which means when the incident has happened, so how do we prosecute those who are responsible for this thing? I think the time has come that we should be now discussing it from the perspective of fire prevention.
Okay.
That how to prevent it. If it has happened after that, whether they are tried in 3 years or 1 year or 2 years, but this incident has still happened and it is repeatedly happening. So I think probably now we should be focusing on the fire prevention. And that prevention means that we will have to work on the society, on the social norms, on the education, and religious extremism. We need to address that. And yes, the punishments which can discourage people from such. And I think the most important thing is that anybody in this country, if he makes an accusation of blasphemy on anybody, there should be something legally very strict, that if it is falsely accused, the person who has done it, he should face something.
Right.
Because this has become very easy, that you can just accuse anyone and you can get away. I think this is one of the fire prevention we will have to do. Coming back to your question about the Lahore elections tomorrow, I think our absence obviously is based on technical basis. It's not that we just try to evade this election because we were not hopeful that we will not win it. It was a PMLN seat, and in the past also there has been seats held by PMLN or other political parties. We have contested all of them, and we have lost them, and we have at some time we have also won them. So I don't think so that a ruling party and Pakistan's largest political party would just try to get away from an elections just because that it's the constituency which belongs to another party. It's not the case. It's a technical, I think, reason. But obviously, the candidate should have been more careful when submitting his papers, and especially the covering candidate. The purpose of the covering candidate is that if the candidate gets disqualified, the covering
so
candidate
both have been, yes.
So both has been.
So you would,
I mean, technically, yes, it's a I would say flaw related to the candidates, not to the party. I mean, it was the responsibility of the candidate that he has to, and he knew it. He has contested elections in the past, so he's not any novice or coming for the first time. But the other thing I would strongly reject, that the PTI has tried to run away from this.
Jawad Sahab, overall, I mean, of course, this is the third year, and you know we're very close to the general elections. Sorry, yes, 3.5. So you know,
fourth year.
So very close to the next general elections, and as a political party, you will be contesting these elections again very soon anyway.
Yes.
So overall, in terms of performance, how do you rate the situation? You know, let's talk about Lahore, let's talk about NA 133.
Marukh, there is absolutely no doubt when we go into the elections, whether it is 23 or 22, if it is earlier, we definitely will be going to the people based on our performance in last 4 or 5 years, whatever the time we had.
Right.
And I would say the performance of PTI government was good in with number of aspects, but the challenges were immense. There were tremendous challenges, and top of those lists, I would say that pandemic has really affected Pakistan. It has affected every country in the world, but probably we were more affected because we just came out of a bankruptcy situation, and we were just out of it, and then it was a pandemic.
But we've been saying that we've done so well coming out of the pandemic compared to other countries. We've also been saying that we can be a case study for other countries as far as you know, the way that the government has dealt with the COVID. So you know, and you know, aftermath, the continuing of it, all of that. So then that should give the government a lot of brownie points, a lot of votes, no?
I think the only challenge which is left, which has not been able to address, is inflation, and especially the food inflation, which is affecting a common man.
Which the government says is global.
This very aspect is directly related to the post-COVID situation, where supply chain management has inflicted a lot of stress on our economy. Not to forget that our economy is based on imports. I mean, we are very basic commodities we are importing. So our import bill is huge, and if there is supply chain management issues, so obviously we will be affected more than other countries. For that, obviously we need to increase our exports, and fortunately our exports in the third year have increased, I think from 25 billion to 33 billion. And so it's a substantial increase in the exports. We have been able to increase our foreign remittance, which is quite a success story. Almost $10 billion we have been able to increase. Our foreign reserves have also been increased.
Let me come back to you. Ji, I will come back to you, Barsab. I'm going to go to Ali Rashid. Ji, Ali, overall, you know, as far as the PPP is concerned, there has been concern, and we saw that Bilawal Bhutto step in, you know, a couple of years ago with regard to reshaping. There was a lot of talk about him of, you know, perhaps reorganizing, perhaps is a better word, the party in Punjab, and the fact that, you know, there was concern that it had been relegated to Sindh. Do you think that you've made inroads into perhaps, you know, reigniting the fervor in, you know, as far as the voter is concerned in Punjab, so to speak?
I think we've done a pretty good job in doing that. I think in Punjab, a lot of people say that we have no presence in Punjab. But in southern Punjab, we have 3 seats of MNAs and a few MPAs also. I think people keep forgetting that. That being said, we've reorganized our structure in Punjab, and as we speak right now, even Asif Zardari Saab is in Lahore, not just for the elections, and he's very frequently in Lahore and Islamabad, and Chairman Bilawal Bhutto Sahab also keeps visiting, and we are on ad hoc basis. We are reorganizing our setup in Punjab, and we're giving it a lot of importance. As you can see, even our Foundation Day Jalsa was in Peshawar in KP. So we are a national party, and we are working towards that. And I think we are working hard to win seats and hearts and minds in Punjab. But you know what's really helping us is PTI's performance or lack of performance. Because look at the inflation, people are killing themselves. There's a gas crisis, energy crisis. The dollar has surged. The stock market has crashed. There's been a deficit, trade deficit, unprecedented in history. It's never been like this. So it's about time. It's the writing on the walls that PTI is about to go out, and obviously the beneficiaries are going to be PPP and other parties, who the people are realizing now that were much better.
As you know, even if, according to you, you're saying that it's the government's performance, but as far as beneficiaries are concerned, don't you think even for PPP to be the kind of beneficiary that, of course, you would want it to be, there needs to be a change overall? Because, of course, we're not just talking about Sindh, again, I'm saying. We're also talking about Punjab, we're also talking about KPK, all of the presence overall of the party.
Well, yeah. I think we're headed in the right, we're going the right place. The direction is right, because we have actually identified where work needs to be done. There's always room for improvement, and we do feel that we have to give more attention to Punjab and KP and other areas. Still, we are very strong. We are winning all the by-elections, and that being said, in Karachi, in the recent cantonment elections, we swept Karachi. Even the National Assembly seat from Karachi, where PTI used to be number 1, we won that seat, and PTI went to number 6. So we will be seeing a lot of surprises, and good things will be happening for PPP in Punjab and other areas too, inshallah.
What about with regard to Karachi overall, the loss of seats as far as PTI is concerned? Do you think the PPP is making inroads into areas where PTI had won in the last elections?
Except for one seat in Karachi, which was objected by all the political parties who were contesting in Karachi, and they recorded their reservation on that election. Other than that, I think Pakistan People's Party has not been able to show any results, any part of the country, whether it is cantonment board elections or it is AJK election, Gilgit-Baltistan election, other by-elections. So far, it is just I would say a tall claim by Pakistan People's Party that we are making inroads and we are reigniting.
What about your relationship as far as the federation, the federal capital, and as far as Sindh is concerned? We've seen a lot of back and forth. Their situation hasn't been all I would say hunky dory, and quite recently also there were a lot of accusations hurled against the Sindh government.
I think first of all, PTI is government and Pakistan People's Party is opposition. So the basis of the relationship is government versus opposition. So that thing is very basic. But,
yes,
on the other hand, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf wants to make inroads in Sindh, and this has been, announced by many PTI leadership. And in Karachi, they make a very big challenge for Pakistan People's Party in 2018 elections and also in the recently conducted cantonment board elections. So any political party which can contest Pakistan People's Party in the future is Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. So
But
that is
Jawad
what
sir-
is the fear of Pakistan People's
Right, fair
Party,
enough. When you
that
talk
they want
about
to
the-
resist and block them to
When you talk about the
expand
opposition
in
and the government,
Sindh.
unfortunately, it's very little time. When you talk about the opposition and the government, certainly that is true, and you said that that is the basis of whatever's happening. But when the federal, federation accuses a province of, increasing prices, making things difficult for the people of that province, then it takes a certain, it's a different. It's not simply about the opposition or the government. Then it becomes the federation against a particular province or a province against them. It's not exactly about the opposition and the government, right?
Maruf, we should not forget that Pakistan People's Party is entering into 14th year of its rule in Sindh. And look at the situation in Sindh, whether it is Thar or it is Ladkana or it is Karachi, the basic infrastructure, anything in Sindh. So after 14 years, if the federal government is identifying the problems, issues, the deficiencies, or the bad performance of Pakistan People's Party, I think this is very much a call of the public, that we should be talking about that a political party which is continuously ruling in Sindh, and Sindh, instead of rising, it is falling every day, including Karachi.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining us, Ahmed Jawad Saab. Thank you for being with us. Barrister Kashif Zubair, thank you for joining us today. Ali Rashid, thank you for being with us today. As far as the issues are concerned, of course, as far as the incidents that happened, the crime that was committed in Sialkot, of course, the whole nation, I think, stands united in wanting to see what happens. As far as, of course, we've also seen that one of the culprits having been apprehended. We've also seen the Prime Minister react across the board. There has been a reaction of condemnation, appall, all of those things. But of course, the reflection is needed on why these instances happen. Why, as a society, have we become accustomed to this kind of, mob a kind of justice, so to speak, which is and the way that it is now going to need a lot of reflection on how and where we are headed, of the use of misuse of religion in politics. All of those things are perhaps needed to be thought about, and that's needs to be, that kind of thought needs to go into, I think, and everybody would agree is the order of the day. We also talked about the NA 133 elections, and of course the fact that it seems to be that it's going to be a walkover for PMLN. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.